Hello and welcome to episode 9, I believe, of the Lack of Interesting Conversation podcast. Thank you again for joining me today here, and thank you for listening, tuning in once again. And if you're hearing it for the first time, thank you for joining me on this ride. Um, Obviously, as I said, this is episode 9. Um, We have 8 other episodes you can go check out. I'd really appreciate it. And if you could just share those, if they have any kind of impact on you, whatever that may be, just go ahead, feel free to share. Also, we are available on pretty much every podcasting platform, including the big three and Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We are also on YouTube. I think we may try something different this week and have a video version of the pod this week as the subject that we were talking about here. I have some visual aids for what I'm talking about. So, and going forward, this might be something I do with the podcast going forward. I guess having a video version of the pod, if that's something you guys are interested in, we can fully just integrate it that way, but we will also still be able to be in audio form as well. So if if anybody is interested, just watching this boring face talk about things, I guess we can do a video podcast. I appreciate it if you are. Also, just a reminder, we do have a Facebook page. We are on Facebook at the Lack of Interesting Conversation podcast. On Facebook, just type that into the search engine there at the top of the Facebook app or website. I'm guessing that's still where it is on the website, as I know most of everybody just uses the app. But if you, for some reason, still use the website, or if that's all that's available to you, which is perfectly fine. Just type us in there. Go to Facebook, like our page. Also, give us a follow on our on your podcast on the podcast platform in which you follow us on. Also, rate us, give us a like. Make sure you follow us on there to get the notification when new episodes drop, and that is every Wednesday at 8 a.m. I try to anyway get it there. But since this is going up on Wednesday, February 18th, this subject is kind of personal to me, I guess, as we are going back to the year in which, in my opinion, the world completely changed. 2001, and we are going back to February 18th, 2001, as this Wednesday marks the 25 year anniversary of the death of Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt definitely was a big reason why I was a NASCAR fan. As a kid, I kind of grown out of the sport. This Dale and Dale Jr., his son, big fans of them. I remember, I guess, after Dale had passed, just remember collecting a lot of both him and his son, Dale Jr., getting a lot of things for birthdays, Christmases from both of them. Even what I have, this clock here, this is not the clock I had as a kid. That one quit working. But as you can see, as on the video portion of the pod, it has the as seen on TV. I don't know if you remember that, but that used to be a big thing back, especially back in the early 2000s. You can just order a bunch of stuff on off the TV. It used to be a big way to for people to promote products, whether that be stuff like CD collections full of hits in genres, and like and also DVD box sets of like bands and stuff like that. I just remember that the TV being littered with all kinds of stuff. But this clock, I do remember this clock. My mom, I don't exactly remember how she got it for me. I don't remember when, I guess. But this clock was pretty cool because not only is the Intimidator on the clock, but here at the top you got the car, and whenever the clock would strike the top of the hour, that car would race around the entire clock here with, as it says, a wall clock with real race sounds. And then once the car got back up to the top of the clock, the announcer, golden announcer here on the clock would announce that there they go, and the winner is Dale Earnhardt. I don't know if the car say 12 12 noon. I don't know if the clock went around, if the car went around 12 times to represent represent that it was 12 noon or 12 midnight, or for each and every number on the clock or not. But this is actually a buddy of mine was selling some NASCAR stuff, and I was able to get this clock because I always thought it was super cool. But I have, for that, that's like the only things I have with me that there, because also I had like I have a ton of die casts and stuff like that too. I guess talking about what happened that day, 25 years ago, because it happened on the final lap in turn 4 as Dale was blocking for Michael Waltrip and Dale Jr. Both those cars were Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, which was Dale Earnhardt's race team's name. So he was the owner of both those cars. And Michael Waltrip at the time had been in the sport for a while, but had never won a race there at the top level of NASCAR, which at that time was called the Winston Cup. As they were all battling, basically trying to get up the lead there. It turned into a battle for third place. Really, Dale kept blocking all those cars behind him, but unfortunately, ended up making contact. Sterling Marlin ended up getting into the back of him a little bit. It sent Dale straight up into the wall. Ken Strader, who drove the M&M's 36 car, I believe that was a Ford at the time, crashed into the side of Dale's, I think it was his right front fender, crashed there, and from there they kind of slid down to the grass. I don't think I watched the race that day, but I'm not 100% sure, as I don't really remember. But just from watching the clip, you could tell how excited Darrell Waltrip, which is Michael Waltrip's older brother, was that he won the race. But that quickly turned into, you could hear the concern. Just, as he said, he just hoped Dale was okay. But as they slid down to the infield there, Ken Strader got out of his car as the safety crews got there to the wreck, and Ken went over there to Dale's car and just checked to see if he'd make sure he was okay. But when he got there, he started waiting for the paramedics and everybody to get there, as he could tell it did not look good. And then from there, he was taken to the Halifax Medical Center, where a short time after that, he was pronounced dead. The official ruling on his death was a vascular skull fracture, which is a break of a bone at the base of the skull. and that was said to kill him instantly. And then less than 2 hours after the incident, Mike Helton, then president of NASCAR, got in front of the media, and this is a direct quote from him. He announced, "This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the incident in Turn 4 at the end of the Daytona 500, we have lost Dale Earnhardt." And with Earnhardt's death there, that had marked the fourth death in NASCAR's top 3 series in the last 8 months. The first, unfortunately, was Adam Petty. Adam was the son of Kyle Petty, also the grandson of Richard Petty. He died in May 2000 of the same injury Dale suffered. As the second one was Kenny Irwin Jr. in July, and Tony Roper in October 2000. That was in the Craftsman Truck Series. All sustained the same injury Dale did. As a result of that, though, immediately I know they put the Hans device, which is a head neck harness, pretty much became mandatory. That helps reduce the likelihood of head and neck injuries. Teams went from a 5-point safety harness to a 6-point safety harness as a result of Dale's death. They also added at tracks safer barriers, which is steel and foam energy reduction barrier, help reduce the kinetic energy when you have cars going as fast as these stock cars do. Helps reduce that kinetic energy when they're going so fast when they crash. As beforehand, those walls, pretty much just concrete walls crashing into the concrete at those high speeds, is pretty dangerous. And then also NASCAR began to work on a brand new car, which is became the car tomorrow, also known as the COT. That was introduced in 07 in some races and eventually became the primary car for NASCAR in 2008 all the way to 2013. And then when they introduced Gen 6 car, but all the safety improvements that the COT brought was carried over to the next car. And those safety improvements, they were pretty much credited, especially at the 2020 Daytona 500, for saving Ryan Newman's life. That wreck was a pretty nasty wreck. I know it was battling for the lead, ended up getting turned and flipping down the racetrack. That was a nasty wreck that you could argue, if not for the safety improvements, Ryan may not be here. That day, I just remember, I think someone called my mom, and then I know she told me about that, and I just remember watching Sports Center back in my room. I honestly don't remember. I don't even know if I knew what to think, to be honest. So looking back on it, it was a very tragic and sad day. It's sometimes it's crazy when you're fans of people, even though you don't know them personally, but I guess they may have affected you in some way in your life. Honestly, while that day and has spurred quite a bit of safety improvements in NASCAR. It would be hard to say that day still doesn't loom large over the entire sport, to be completely honest. As Dale, honestly, he was had such a big presence in the sport, being a 7-time Winston Cup champion and winning 76 races and being in the sport since 1979, and being able to helped spur changes and being able to talk to NASCAR officials and being as popular as he was, both uh, as many as people as that loved the guy, many more probably disliked him, as his racing style definitely could rub people the wrong way. But he is definitely still missed to this day, in my opinion. Really, because I mean, with Michael Waltrip in that race, I mean, celebrating it his first ever Winston Cup win, um, for that a tragedy like that to happen when you win your first ever Cup race. I can, gosh, I mean, not only that, but Dale believed in Michael. He brought him on to his team, his racing team, gave him a chance, and Michael took that chance and ran with it. Um, and just for that, yeah, I mean, that's all that race is known for is the death of Dale Earnhardt. When you would ask about that race and what they thought about it or what they remember it for is Dale's death, as they were pretty much the entire sport was at a loss. They had no clue what to do, really, and um, they went to Rockingham, aka the Rock, the following week. And Steve Park, he drove the Dale Earnhardt Incorporated #1 Pennzoil Chevrolet. He ended up going to victory lane that week. I'm sure that was, I know that was a feel good moment. Maybe some kind of healing process, especially for Steve. Although I know very early in that race, Dale Jr. Wrecked kind of similarly to the wreck that his dad was in the week before. The team that Dale Earnhardt drove for, Richard Childress Racing, they ended up putting Kevin Harvick in that car, and same sponsor, Goodrich Service Plus, but they went and changed the number to the 29 and made the car white and with red trim at the bottom of the car. I remember at the end of that race was super close because I think, I think Dale's second to last win of his career was he won there at Atlanta, which was the racetrack in which they were at the same race at the Cracker Barrel 500. He won maybe like by inches again over Bobby Labonte. The same happened for Kevin Harvick that day. They won by just inches. Another feel good moment for that team. Another part of the healing process for them. And I know as later in that year, they have two races at Daytona, one at the beginning of the NASCAR season. Then they go to Daytona. They used to like July 4th weekend, and that race in 2001 was known as the Pepsi 400. And that night, Dale Jr. ended up going to victory lane, which was in my opinion, a huge part of NASCAR. Maybe finally start to heal and try to move on from losing such an icon of the sport. And in my opinion, Dale's Earnhardt Sr.'s shadow still looms pretty large over the sport, even after his death 25 years later. With all the safety improvements in which that's brought on, not a single driver in the top three series of NASCAR, which is Craftsman, Truck Series, the I know back at the time it used to be called the Busch Series, and then they got the Cup Series. Not a single driver has died since the Dale Earnhardt crash, which is great. But also it kind of stings the fact that you had to lose somebody as big to the sport as Dale Earnhardt to spur those safety improvements on. But um, but about like I guess 3 years later, I know there was a movie made about Dale Earnhardt. I remember this on ESPN. It was called Three, the Dale Earnhardt story. That was released on December 11th, 2004. I remember getting that movie and watching that movie then. I remember I got the collector's edition DVD somewhere. That has not the movie, then another DVD that has tons of bonus content on it of Dale. Barry Pepper, he's not a, I guess, big time, well known actor, but he was cast as Dale. Honestly, I thought he did a good job with the mustache and everything, though, with the hair and makeup. I thought they did a good job making Barry look like Dale. And the other, I guess, prominent actor in the movie had J.K. Simmons, aka J. Jonah Jameson, play Dale's dad, Ralph Earnhardt. But the movie was not without controversy, as none of the Earnhardt family approved the script for the film. There are also a lot of inaccuracies, even though it captured the essence of Dale. Then I know on the cover of the DVD and the poster and stuff like that, the 3 is not like the 3 on the side of the car, because Richard Childress owns the trademark for that font for that 3. I know he sued ESPN because of that. Because of that, and then end up settling out of court. But then about with DEI after that, obviously losing your leader there. I know Teresa ended up taking over Dale's position there as the leader of the company, and they had success for a couple more years after Dale's death, with I would say probably 2004 being their most successful season, as that was Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s most successful season there at DEI. But eventually in 2007, I know he and Teresa were not able to come to an agreement for an extension, and which ended up letting Dale Jr. leave for Hendrick Motorsports to eventually drive the number 88 Mountain Dew, Amp Energy, and National Guard car, as he's had several sponsors. But still, I would say is probably his most famous car is that red number 8 DEI car for most of his fans. And really from there, I guess after that 2004 season, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated really started to struggle, and they ended up just 8 short years after Dale's death, after the 2009 season, ended up closing their doors for good, which caused them to leave the sport of NASCAR, as they no longer field a car in any of the top series in NASCAR. I do remember on a vacation visiting DEI with my family and walking through the museum there. I don't know if that museum's open to the public anymore or not. I know there's a lot of cars there, cars that were raced and stuff. Not just the drivers there, like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Michael Waltrip, Steve Parks' cars, but also some of Dale's cars. Some of his trophies are there, I believe. And then also they had a gift shop, I remember. If you remember back in the day, when drivers had an alcohol sponsor, and not just on the toy die casts like they sell in Walmart, but also in video games, they, instead of having the alcohol sponsor on the car, they would have the name of the driver on the car and the font of I guess, in the same style as the main sponsor in real life, the way it's designed and put on the car. That is the way the name would be spelled. Um, but I remember that was the first time I ever seen um, a car with Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s actual sponsor um, on it, and I remember getting that there. Um, I know. I guess that day they brought. I did not see that, but some of my family did brought a wrecked car from the previous weekend's race back to DI, which would have been cool to see. But and then I guess after the year after DEI pulled out of NASCAR officially in the inaugural class of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which was 2010, Dale was inducted as a team owner and driver, and he was inducted by his kids, Carrie, Kelly, Dale Jr., and Taylor, and his widow, Teresa. Um, and Dale is also consistently named as one of the top drivers in the sports history, as in 1998. I know a lot of sports did this in the 90s. I know the NBA did. I believe the NFL did. They listed their top 50 drivers in 1998. He was on that. Then in 2023, they expanded the list to 75, and he was still on that. And let's talk about the state of Dale's career and the hopes of him going into that 2001 season. Going into that 2001 season, he was looking to reclaim his title as the top NASCAR driver there in the sport and become a Winston Cup champion for what would have been a record 8th time, as he is. I mentioned previously he is a 7-time Winston Cup champion, time with Richard Petty. Dale won it in 1980, which was his second year as a professional race car driver in NASCAR. Then won it in 88, 89, 87, and 90, 91, and 90, 93, 94. I guess I never realized that until I looked into it, that his last 6 championships all came back to back, and with a few years in between each championship after he went back to back. Also, but I know going into that season, finally started to seem like he was back on track, as really, I guess, starting in 1996, that kind of changed everything. I know he won 2 races that year, but during the Die Hard 500 that year in 1996, that was July 28th there. That was at Talladega, a race track in which Dale has the most wins all time. I know he was battling for the lead there and ended up getting to a pretty nasty crash. Hit the wall, flipped a few times down the track, and with cars trying to get around him and ended up hitting him. He ended up hurting himself pretty good. He ended up suffering a broken collarbone, a broken sternum, and a bruised ribs because of that wreck. But ended up racing the next week at the Brickyard 400, which is at Indianapolis. I'm guessing that is part of the reason why they called Dale one of his nicknames, One Tough Customer, also Ironhead, because really he probably should have taken some time to heal. But he ended up finishing and racing in the rest of the season. He didn't miss a race that year. Although he had 2 wins earlier in the season, he kind of fell off the rest of the year. And then the following year, 1997, that was the first time he had gone winless since his 3rd year as a professional in NASCAR in 1981. Then it all came to a head there at the start of the 1998 season with the 40th running of the Daytona 500. Dale at that point had been a pro. I know Mike Joy on the broadcast said 20 at the end there, 20 years of trying. He had been so close so many times for him to, I guess, run out of fuel, have a tire cut down, going to the start finish line there at the very last lap, or within, just come up short, and to snap that his winless streak was 59, which was 59 races without a win. He finally after years of trying, finally came and conquered the one race in which had avoided him in his very prestigious career. He was, after that race in that Daytona 500 in '98, he could finally call himself a Daytona 500 champion. As seeing clips and stuff of him in victory lane, how happy he was that he finally could call himself a champion of the Daytona 500, like a monkey was off his back. Then he went winless the rest of the season, finishing 8th in points. Then in 1999, he improved. He added 2 more wins to his total from 99, winning a total of 3. His first win came at a track race in which he wrecked just 3 years earlier at the Die Hard 500. This time that race was earlier in the year. He dominated that day. He led the most laps that day on his way to victory lane, and also won the Goody's Headache Powder 500, which was at Bristol. That was in '99. I believe he, in the final laps, wrecked Terry Labonte, which obviously Terry Labonte was not very happy about that. But Dale kind of apologized half-heartedly, maybe a little bit, in victory lane, saying he didn't mean to spin him. But obviously, if you know Dale Earnhardt's career, he did that plenty of times and throughout his entire run as a NASCAR Winston Cup driver. And then finally, his win came at the towards the end of the season at the Winston 500, which was also at Talladega. So he swept Talladega that season, won both races there. Then went on that during that race, he went from 27th to 5th in the first 3 laps as he started in the back of that pack there at the start of that race, which is moved from, 22 positions. That is nothing short of incredible. That is just unheard of and insane. I doubt you can even do that with the current cars, as this past weekend's Daytona 500 showed. You really can't gain any positions on anybody, as everybody kind of does a pack race. Everybody just stays together and drafts off each other. Then in 2000, it kind of showed a return to form, as Dale ended up finishing second in points that year, right behind eventual Cup champion Bobby Labonte, which in the earlier in the season, as I talked about with the Kevin Harvick finish at the Cracker Barrel Country Store 500, Dale won this race by inches over Bobby Labonte. I know that finish is still talked about quite a bit, as that was his first win of the season. Then the final win of the season, which ended up being his final win in his career, his 76th win. He became back-to-back champions of the Winston 500, and I believe at this Winston 500 he won the bonus for the winning that race was $1 million. So that was pretty happy, obviously, about that. But with him finishing second in the standings that year, that was his first time he was in the top 3 of the Winston Cup standings since 1995. I believe he also finished second that year. And also, it was the most top 10s, 24 since 1995. I believe he won 25. He was in the top 10, 25 times there. And also, he had finished with 13 top 5s in 2000. The most since 1996, which he also finished with 13 that year as well. The year is, I guess, kind of the struggles kind of start for Dale. I'm sure it had a lot to do with the injuries and stuff like that. As I know before that 2000 season, I believe, he ended up having surgery to repair a disc in his upper back, I believe. Um, but obviously, was finished as strong as he finished the 2000 season. He honestly seemed to be looking pretty forward to that 2001 season, as I'm sure he was a Winston Cup favorite to win what would be his eighth Winston Cup Series championship. Kind of, and then he started out the year there at Daytona. I believe this year was the last year that this race happened, but in 2001 he ran the 24 hours of Daytona. I believe this this is a race in which you have all kinds of like Porsches and Ferraris and Chevy use their Corvette, and you go and have drivers as you race around Daytona for 24 hours. I believe, um, and Dale Jr. was racing alongside of him in this car. In this race, Dale Jr., I believe he was number 2. Dale obviously was number 3. In the Corvette C5R car, and Dale ended up finishing 4th there in that race, which was something in an interview he gave like 3 days before he died to, I think, NASCAR magazine, something like that. It was something he always wanted to do. He was pretty excited and talked about how excited he was for the upcoming season, which unfortunately ended in tragedy before really anyone was ready for it to be over. But at the time, Dale was 49 when he passed. He would have been 50 that April. This past weekend, I know all the RCR cars had a black on black with a white outline 3 on all their cars in memory of Dale. I know also NASCAR had a moment of silence there on the 3rd lap of the Daytona 500 with people putting the 3 fingers in the air as a tribute to Dale. But I guess this weekend honestly brought back a lot of memories, a lot of feelings. Also, I know this weekend, Dale Earnhardt's grandson, which would be Kerry's son, Bobby Dale Earnhardt, he races in the ARCA series, drives the number 89 Chevrolet. I know he kind of partnered with Justin Calvin. He's on Instagram known as JCal Designs, J_Cal_Designs. On Instagram, he helped Bobby design a tribute paint scheme to his grandfather. Turned out pretty cool. A tribute to the Dale Earnhardt's probably most famous paint scheme, the Goodwrench paint scheme. He ended up finishing 9th in that ARCA race. But also, JCal, he's a pretty cool follow on Instagram. I know he kind of there a while back. I know he recently put up another post and put these in multiple slides, but he kind of did a what if paint scheme for a Dale Earnhardt retirement tour, and labeled it as Dale Forever Tour in the pictures. But he posted several what if different paint schemes Dale could have ran in what would have been his final year as a NASCAR Winston Cup driver. And those are honestly pretty cool. But he also does stuff for other drivers too, just not Dale Sr. But he's done what if paint schemes for Dale Jr. too, and several other drivers. And there outside of Daytona, there's a statue of Dale holding the Daytona 500 trophy with his left arm in the air. That trophy is right outside the Ticket and Tours building. Dale also has the most wins in Daytona International Speedway history with 34. I think, I don't think the second place person doesn't even come close to matching the same amount of victories that Dale Earnhardt has at Daytona. And I know this past weekend, as there are a lot of articles and stuff like that about this 25th anniversary. I know on Fox Sports 1, they're premiered on February 12th at 10, a documentary titled We Lost Dale Earnhardt. 25 years later, you had Mike Helton, the then president of NASCAR, interviewed there. Rusty Wallace, who was a former competitor of Dale's, also had Kurt Busch, which that race, the Daytona 500 in 2001, was Kurt's first. That was Kurt Busch's rookie year, so that was the very first race of his rookie season. And then you also had Kyle Busch. There, he was, I think, 15 at a time. I know he and his parents were in the stands, cheering on his brother there, and also had other fellow drivers, Ryan Blaney. I know his father raced against Dale. Joey Logano, he was also interviewed for this doc. Then he also had Frankie Muniz, who is currently a NASCAR driver. If you didn't know, Frankie Muniz is obviously famous for his role as Malcolm in the Middle, which for me, I think, was a Red Heart show at the time, and that was on Fox in 01, as Fox had just gotten the rights to NASCAR that year, and they were paying a lot of money, paid a lot of money to get these rights. So because of Malcolm was so hot, they wanted to put Frankie Muniz as the Grand Marshal of the Daytona 500 that year, which he was. And I know in this documentary, he was filming a show for MTV, so he had MTV cameras following him around that day, which is kind of crazy, really, to be honest. I know, and he also had some interactions with Dale Earnhardt. I know he said during the first conversation they had that day that Dale wanted to thank him for his show because that helped him and his daughter Taylor be able to bond more as they sat down on Sunday nights and to watch Malcolm in the Middle together. And then I know Frankie also said that as he was walking to the pace car as the Grand Marshal, he shook Dale's hand and ended up being one of the last people to ever speak to Dale Earnhardt outside the vehicle. And on that last lap, I know Frankie said that he was where the spotters are on top of the grandstands, I believe, and saw the crash from there. And then say it didn't look bad to him, and then ended up going back to the hotel after the race, and his mom was in the hotel bar, and then he flipped on the TV in his room, and then the Mike Helton press conference came on TV, and then after seeing that, he ran down to the bar to his mom, and there was a ton of race fans there, and he said he pretty much had announced what had happened, and that completely silenced everybody in the place. I can't imagine that feeling. That's just crazy, to be honest. But last two people that were interviewed for this doc was Ryan McGee. He at the time in 2001, there was a show called Totally NASCAR. Fox had was getting ready to got launched that week in preparation for the Daytona 500 on the Fox main channel, and And that show he was a producer for might be um, the last sit-down television interview of any of that kind in Dale Earnhardt's life. Um, and then also you had Patty Wheeler. She is a retired sports um, media executive. She was helping Fox kind of put together their NASCAR package and all what they wanted to do and stuff like that. She was also interviewed, and they just really just talked about um, that day and Dale's impact on on the sport and on the fans and on the fellow drivers and stuff that honestly um, has kind of been said before, I guess. And um, I mean, there was like the Frankie Muniz story was something that I had no clue about, but um, I guess is this a necessary watch, especially if you know exactly what happened and that day and the years to come, years after that? I would say no, but also um, if I guess if you're curious about it, you can go ahead and give it a watch. But really, out of all the Earnhardt documentaries that have been made since his passing, I would say the four-part documentary series like was released last year, I think in May, from Prime Video, entitled Earnhardt. Um, that was then where they partnered with Dale Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt Miller. I would say that's probably the one to watch out of all of them, as really you're getting firsthand accounts. I believe Carrie's in that too, but I think the driving force behind that documentary was Dale Jr. and Kelly. Um, that's the one to watch because you're getting firsthand accounts from his kids and people who were honestly the closest to him at the time of his death, and at least the ones closest to him who are wanting to open up and talk. Um, and it shows both the good and the bad side of Dale, as obviously no one's perfect. Everyone has their faults. Um, but also, with Dale dying at 49, it's just a reminder that, as it says in Scripture, man is appointed once to die, and um, we never know when that day is. Um, the thing that we can do is best just live um, as Jesus would want us to live. Um, as the two greatest commandments is to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And also, I would say, and also to know Jesus for who he is as Lord and Savior, which I'd pray Dale did know him. And if he did, um, I look forward to meeting him someday. But um, obviously, I know this is a longer than normal version of the podcast, but there was a lot to talk about as it's been 25 years. I know this is something I've never really talked about or anything like that. I know he's meant a lot to my fandom, as he still means a lot to it, and it means a lot to a lot of people, especially his family, whom I can imagine what they had dealt with that day and the years since then, as having as your father or your parent be someone as big as Dale Earnhardt was and is, to be able to talk about it and try and heal from it. And although I can speak as I lost my dad, as the years pass, it's I guess maybe can be a little easier to deal with, but that doesn't mean you don't think about him a lot, your lost parent a lot. And no matter at what age, when you lose a parent, it's never easy. And I would even recommend, if you are still dealing, having difficulty talking, difficulty with the loss of a parent, to talk to someone, reach out to someone, whether that be a therapist or a friend or something, or somebody like that. Um, it, like I said, trust me, it helps quite a bit. I know I even did it after the loss of my dad. Even though we didn't have the greatest relationship, but still, it didn't mean I don't love him and don't miss him and don't think about him and what he's missing with my children. But anyway, I know I feel like I kind of ran long, but anyway, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it. Give us a like, rate us, comment where you can comment. And I just thank you so much for joining me again today here on the Lack of Interesting Conversation podcast.